Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Gray Area here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, simulcasting on the Sparta HQ Network. I am Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always,
This is Sparta!
the Ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panayotis. Yasu, my brother, what is going on?
Nothing much. It was a very good weekend on my end. How about you?
I can't complain. I can't complain. Summer's here, and certainly getting out more. And just enjoying the weather and the time. I got a ton of housework to do. I got to power wash the house next week and whatnot, so I'll be out there working. But certainly, it's good to be fit and good to have all my faculties to do so. So
it's funny you said that because I went to the rodeo last night. Actually,
get out of here.
Yeah, that was an experience and a half. But these guys gave those bulls are incredible, and like the little leagues first, then the middle, and the pros came out. Man, when those bulls went at them, I went like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
It's I can officially say now, one Greek who drove on a NASCAR track today.
Is that right?
Yeah. So my girl scored a couple of tickets for the race. It was a last minute kind of thing. So we came home, chilled home, and we went there. And let's get out of here early before we hit the traffic. That was the worst idea ever, actually. But it worked in my favor because they were pulling us through on the track and off to the back or entrance. And we're like, and I was sending you a video. My girl would take us she goes like, this is like, she goes, go faster. I'm like, I can't go fast. I can't go on that thing. I'm gonna flip my car in one moment.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. That's a NASCAR. The one thing I never forget. One time I was driving through Dover, and I saw the race, the NASCAR track in Dover. And if you want to think about like MetLife Stadium, Giant Stadium, whatever, imagine 3 to 4 times that in terms of the crowds out there. So that was the first time I realized how big NASCAR was as far as like as a sport. Yep. So it was unbelievable. But certainly, certainly we are excited about certainly our show tonight. But before we start the show, just want to make sure that when you come in tonight, make sure you hit the subscribe button to both the Black Man Unfiltered Network and hop over to Sparta HQ. Certainly helps us on the platform there, and certainly anything you want to give to the Black Man Unfiltered Network, certainly you see scrolling at the bottom of the screen. You can drop a super chat or a cash app.
Do me a favor, Paul. I like BMU's last comment.
I'm almost afraid to.
Yeah, go faster, please. Pause.
My gosh. Well, you see what I'm up against, ladies and gentlemen. I got to deal with Peter, and then Sir BMU. He always gives me some adjectives.
Well, Paul, you think I am bad, but we had multiple guests from the military, and obviously we know they have no filter. So I think we waited long enough. I think we need to bring her up. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. But I gotta bring her proper though. All right. So again, as always, I certainly, as Peter said, we've had several certainly guests, certainly from the military on the show. But I want to give her sort of her opening before we get into this thing. So this is certainly an Army veteran, a recovery advocate, author, poet, artist, entrepreneur, podcaster. Find her at sliderbabe.com is a website. You can find her on the social media at sliderbabes. And she even wrote a book, certainly more me than I used to be, a journey to freedom. Certainly is our pleasure to certainly introduce our guest for this evening. Please help us welcome Marie Slider Henriksen to the Sparta HQ, to the Black Man Unfiltered, to the Gray Area. It's good to have you here tonight. Good evening. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
We're good.
It's our pleasure
that you're here as well. Certainly you were recommended to us. Peter's always working the lines. I got to give him credit. He's always working it in terms of getting us great guests, especially from the military. We love speaking with our military vets and just have them share their stories. Everyone is different. Everyone's so varied and whatnot. And just reading your bio. Certainly a very interesting life, and certainly looking forward to exploring that this evening with you on the show. So really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Awesome. Peter, you can certainly take it away with the first one.
I like starting out with our guest. I ask one simple and major question. What is your relationship with the military?
Oh, I was a medic in the Army. I was in for almost 6 years, got medically discharged, and I am just a huge advocate for other veterans as well now, veterans and active duty.
So obviously you don't wake up one day saying, hey, I want to be a medic. You know, why not? What made you get down to that path of career? That's the biggest question I think is tonight.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I was not doing really good. I dealt with a lot of childhood trauma. And when I was 17, I'd been raped. And I just didn't know what I was going to do in life. Like I wasn't doing really well in school. I kind of lost a lot of hope. And I just struggled with not knowing what I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't going to get into college or scholarships, and I couldn't afford getting into college. And so I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I met this recruiter and just had the conversation with him, you know, because my dad and I had gotten into an argument about what I wanted to do when I got out. Cause I was like, I have to move out, but I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm going to move in with friends. And anyways, it was just an argument. My dad had been in Navy years in the 60s, you know, and he made the comment, he's like, well, why don't you just join the Navy or something? And, you know, then I was like, well, fine. And then the next week I was in the Army. And so I had the experience when I was a kid to, you know, you remember the commercial, Be All That You Can Be?
Oh, yeah. I love those. Even to I have a playlist of all of them. Those, the Marine, all those, they would have had me years ago, but I love all those military ads.
Yeah. Well, I used to watch that and I'm like, well, I'm never going to be in the military, but if I am, I'm going to join the Army. And so I went and talked to a recruiter and I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do in life. And they're like, well, let's get you joined. And so I decided just kind of on a whim, let's do it. And it was the day before I graduated high school that I officially did my swear-in. And I had them announce me as Private Marie Slider. And it was the funniest thing. And then about a month and a half later is when I actually went into basic training. So it wasn't something I was planning. I just knew that I wasn't okay with where I was, and I needed some sort of cushion when I got out of high school.
Gotcha. Now where are you from? I see your background. Are you from like the Pacific Northwest or whatever? You got the mountains and everything. Where do you hail from?
So let me tell you, this photo is Yosemite National Park. This is one of the first photos that I ever took right before I got out of the military. This was a picture I took with a flip phone that made me fall in love with photography, which really helped because I didn't really have a voice because of my traumas and then military service. And I didn't even know how lost I was in trauma and addictions, but I knew that this beauty was around. And that's kind of what kept me alive, was being able to see this beauty in the darkness that I felt inside. And this started my photography, I wouldn't necessarily career, but my photography hobby, you know. And so I grew up in Arizona. I was born in New York, lived in California and Pennsylvania for a little while, but I was raised in Arizona and then graduated high school in Utah. And many years living in a bunch of different places inside and outside of the military. I'm actually now back in Utah. So I am currently in Utah. I've been here since about 2021.
Gotcha. And certainly this is, so you get into this being a medic, so again that's like being a doctor, right? I mean, there's obviously medical training. Did you even flirt with maybe once you get out, maybe going to medical school or what have you? Like, was this something you saw as a career for yourself going forward?
So the training that I did was actually the National Registry Emergency Medical Technician basic training. And so it was basically, in the civilian world, it would equate to an ambulance driver. But in the military, we have a lot more freedom. We do a whole lot more. And so I was trained in a lot of stuff that nurses would do, and emergency medical stuff like they would do in the ER and stuff like that. But in the civilian world, I wouldn't have been able to. But I deployed for a year. And after being deployed and dealing with the trauma of being over there and the blood, bodies, stuff like that, when I got out of the military, I was like, it's not worth it to me. I would have had to do a whole lot of training just to do a little bit of what I had been doing. And I was done seeing seeing that kind of stuff. That's not what I wanted in my life on a regular basis. I didn't know how to handle it, you know, and I did my job, did what I have to do, but then I ran to addictions because I could not emotionally handle it. So when I got out, I was like, nope, there's no way. I'm never getting into the medical field again.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Pete, you got another question? Let me take over.
So when you got in, you're in boot camp, going through the drills and everything. Were you thinking like, God, I made a big mistake in my life, or did I do the right choice? But I usually hear, I made a big mistake during boot camp.
Oh no, I thrived in it. Really? I thrived in it. Oh yeah. Like I felt like I belonged. I felt like I had purpose. Before growing up and into, you know, junior high and high school, I never really felt connected to anything or anyone. And this was kind of like the beginning of me feeling connected and feeling like I had purpose, because before I don't know how best to explain it. I felt like I was subjected to what everybody else wanted. And in the military, that was the one thing I was doing for myself. And even though I had, you know, a mommy and daddy drill sergeants and NCOs and stuff like that were taking care of me, this was still me getting out on my own and doing something that gave me value, gave me worth. And I worked really hard. I played a lot harder and I got into a lot of trouble. But I loved the way that my body felt with all of the hard work that we were doing. I loved all the lessons I was learning with the medical stuff and with the vehicles and all the other, you know, weapons training and stuff like that. I actually felt like I had purpose and value. So I loved it. And when I got medically discharged, it broke my heart because yes, I loved being in there. And, you know, the dialectic, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of dialectic behavioral therapy. You learn about the ants. Two things are true at once. Okay. It's a really amazing therapy. So I loved it. And I also hated it because it traumatized me a lot, you know? And so there was this love-hate relationship that I had with it. And so when I got out, I was ready to get out, but also not ready. You know, I was ready to kind of see what the next chapter was, but I was miserable when I got out because I lost a lot of that camaraderie that I had. I lost a lot of that value. I was medically discharged. And so that kind of, to me, validated the reality that my body is my worth. For a long time, my body was my worth because of sexual trauma I went through and rape. And so I had that mindset that my body is my worth. And then when I got out of the military, they're like, oh, your body's broken. We can't have you here anymore. And so that was another layer of that. Yeah. Your body is your worth. And so I was miserable and relieved to get out. So it was a little bit of both. And I missed it. I felt important. I felt like I was strong and valuable. And then when I got out, I just felt worthless.
Right.
So I'm sorry, Paul, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I just want to kind of unpack a little bit what you're saying, because first of all, I mean, thank you for sharing. I mean, you've been already, you know, pretty brave tonight and just sharing your story, and I really appreciate the transparency. But let's take me back a little bit to your childhood. Was like, I know you said your father was in the Navy, but you said when you were in high school, where you really didn't quite fit in, or you didn't feel like you. So talk about what that life was like growing up. I mean, why was you think that sense of being you just felt yourself just different from other people, or what was driving that?
Okay, so I have quite a bit of a story. So I was actually born to addict alcoholic parents.
Okay.
And dealt with different types of abuses before I ended up in foster care. And my biological dad had been in the Army himself. I didn't find out until after I had been in the Army. But he got discharged due to his own stuff that he had going on. And so then my brother and I went to live with my biological mom and her abusive boyfriend. And then she sent us back with dad and his parents, but he wasn't around. Grandparents couldn't really take care of us. We ended up in foster care. We were in foster care and with the family, which is the Sliders. And we ended up going to live with my aunt for a little while, but she decided she didn't want me. She only wanted my brother. And they're like, you're not going to separate them. So we went back into foster care and back to the Sliders. Mm-hmm. And so we were raised with the Sliders. And, they did the best that they could, but they were dealing with their own issues. And we have a lot of family dynamics. There's a lot, but in the house, I dealt with some abuse that was going on. I also just never really felt connected. Every summer while this was kind of a rule that happened with foster kids back in the 90s. It's, the family had to keep their family separate from the foster kids so that the birth kids knew that they were important, because foster kids were coming and going. And so during the summer, the family would go on vacation and I would go to another foster home or go to a camp. For Christmases, we had separate Christmas trees. The family had their Christmas tree. We had our separate one. And so even though, they were doing the best they could and they gave me a house of love and whatnot, they had their own traumas that they were trying to deal with as well. And so it's, there was definitely this feeling of separation. I never felt like I was connected. And then to top it off, I also was a blooming addict and alcoholic. And that's my first addiction was codependency and food. And I didn't know how to connect with people. I became a chameleon. I was everything you wanted me to be, but that I was also getting picked on all the time. And I had to put a smile on my face and pretend like I was this happy-go-lucky girl, but I never felt love. And now part of this is my own young perspective, but also it was the actions of other people. Yeah. And so I just never felt connected. And when being a chameleon didn't make me feel safe, then I became a peacock and I was loud and obnoxious trying to get attention. Right. And then that would cause more getting picked on, and then I would shut down. And so it was this big, like, I don't know where to fit in. I don't know how to be. And then when I was 12, and I was still this happy-go-lucky, I was trying, I also had ADHD. Come to find out, I also had a lot of physical problems as well, but I didn't find out until, later on in life. But my body also just never felt right. Something was always wrong. Yeah. I got winded faster than the other kids. People would go running and my hips just never felt right. And I would get lightheaded, and I've recently been diagnosed with something that's called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And it's a genetic condition where my body makes a defective collagen. And so everything degenerates faster. And I didn't know, but I had some symptoms of it when I was younger, and part of that is also POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. It's a form of dysautonomia. My nervous system is just shot. So I feel things a lot heavier and harder and faster, and it makes me lightheaded. It makes my heart start pounding. My blood pressure will tank. And I had symptoms of this because even in 6th grade, I would come home. I remember this very distinctly, where I would come home and just lay on the ground because gravity was too heavy for me. And I would just lay down on the ground and put my face on the cold tile because I just didn't feel right. And they just thought maybe headaches or allergies or something, but there was no real, figuring out what it was, right. And so I know what it is now, but back then I didn't. So I didn't feel right there. And then with my ADHD, they put me on medications really early in life. And so I never really felt like I could be me. And then, when I was 12, I had someone loving me in a very inappropriate way. And so I didn't know what love was. I couldn't really love myself. I couldn't really be myself, and I was also dealing with trying to figure out my sexuality, because I had all levels of that was going on. What is healthy love? What is not? Do I love who I want? Do I not? And there was a lot of this. And then as I started developing, I also had issues with my body as well, with stretch marks from this syndrome that was going on. And so I had this body dysmorphia. And then also I used to, again, run to food to eat. And when I hit puberty, I started gaining weight. And so then it was, I had to be put on a diet because I was gaining weight. And so I didn't know how to accept my body. I was being picked on a lot. And so that was when I started self-harming. You know, that was kind of like my first thing that I started doing. And then I got into bulimia. And so with the binging and purging, I would eat, but I didn't want to gain the weight. So then I would throw it up again.
Throw it up,
And then I was introduced to weed and alcohol. And that was kind of where I finally was like, all right. You know what I mean? Like I didn't care about pretending anymore. You know, I stopped doing good in class. I started sneaking out. I wasn't doing really good. I tried to still be joyful. And like the one thing that was really awesome that I love that my parents encouraged me. So I was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you know, and Mormon for people who don't know. And I am back into the church now and active. And I go to the temple. I've got my recommend and I love it. But for many years I fell away. But the thing that I loved was when I was younger, my parents did scripture reading every day. They did prayers every day. They did a family night. They had us go to church. They helped me build a relationship with God and Christ, regardless of if the world would let me down, regardless if people would let me down. They encouraged me how to find my own relationship with that. And so that is a huge foundation of everything. So even though I was feeling lost and broken and got into addictions and dealing with different types of abuses and stuff like that, I always knew that there was some higher power and some purpose. And that kept me going through the hard moments. So then we go into junior high and I'm doing this exploration of who I am. And I also got into like music and choir and singing and using my voice in a musical way. And that is important because nowadays, you know, I'm a huge advocate for using creativity in your field. Indeed. And so I would do choir. And then when I got into high school, that's when I kind of started getting into more trouble and really sneaking out. I was in a metal band for a little while, you know, and I was getting high, I was getting drunk, you know, just acting crazy. And, you know, one of my friends was into some really evil stuff. And at some point there was a manipulation between my parents and my brother here in Utah. And they're like, hey, you need to go up to Utah to live. And so I ended up coming up to Utah, but wherever you go, there you are. Right. And I just got with the same type of friends. And at one point I decided to go partying with my boss and his friends. And, I got so extremely drunk that like my faculties were just completely gone. And they had me smoke something that I believe now was meth. And 3 of them took my virginity after that.
Wow.
And wow. And so there was just a lot of stuff that happened that I just had no value, had no worth. I didn't feel in control of my body. I didn't feel in control of my life at all. And the weed and the alcohol are what made things better. And so when I had this choice to get out and try to restart my life and do something that I was in control of, I thrived in doing that.
And it makes perfect sense now. And again, I thank you for sharing that because it definitely brings the context. We're always asking like what motivates someone to get into the military, but obviously the structure, the consistency and whatnot. I mean, I can certainly see that being a godsend at the time that, you know, so you needed it. And it even goes into one of the questions I had, like when you talk about the traumas and PTSD, this started way before. Like because initially going in, just looking at your background a little bit, I was going to ask like these things happen when you're in the military, and I'm sure there's experiences there that we'll talk about. But this started so early, and it's almost a miracle that you were even able to get to an age that you could still make that decision that yes, I want to get, yes, I want to take this blissfully on. You could have easily at any point in the process, you could have went another way, but certainly in this case, like the military literally like saved you at came to your life at the right time. So that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Pete, you want to go to the next block?
First of all, I want to relate a little bit because I know you said you stepped away from your beliefs and you came back. I had a similar situation. Didn't stop believing, but I stopped going to church because of situations that happen in life. You know what I'm saying? So definitely now I'm back in churches. Like I see things in different eyes, if that makes sense. So with the question I had to ask you is, I know you say you got discharged, correct? Medical discharge, you said?
Yeah.
Why did you get medical discharge?
My hips gave out. I'd been in Iraq for 8 months. And I was going out on missions every day. I was working hard. I worked with some field artillery guys, and so we were training hard. We were working hard, and going out every day. And the vehicle, they get really bumpy, and then I was wearing gear, all of my my armor and stuff, which was pushing down on my hips as the vehicle is coming up. And so it was like smashing my hips consistently, running on the rocks, all of that kind of stuff, all the training that we were doing. And I had gone home on leave. And the day after I went home on leave, I couldn't get out of bed. And my hips had just completely given out. And so I was home for about 2 weeks, kind of rested enough. I got back to Iraq and they're like, hey, we need to ground you to the fob. You can't go on missions anymore. And so for the last 4 months, I was doing physical therapy 3 times a week, and they were trying to fix my hips. And they ended up, when I got back from the deployment, they're like, hey, you can either do this really extensive, surgery that could damage your hips more or not, or we can just medically discharge you. And I was like, you're not going to mess with the stability of my hips. Just get me out.
Yeah. Yeah. So was Iraq was that the main theater of war that you were in? Were you in other campaigns or other theaters of war at the time? And also, Iraq was just now, you don't give away your age, but again, there's Bush 1, Bush 2, kind of in that time frame, talk about that, the theaters you've been in, and what place in Iraq were you in?
Yes. Really quick, I'm sorry, my medication alarm is going off, and if I don't turn it off, it'll keep going off every 10 minutes.
Not a problem.
So let me go turn that off real quick.
Yep. We're bring it right back. But yeah, I mean that's like I said, just her.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. Wow, right now, because I'm
so sorry about that.
No problem at all.
You're good.
I have some mental cognition and memory issues, and so I have to have an alarm that goes off to let me know about my meds. So
sure.
Which is something about him up there, but he's just old. That's all it is.
Yeah. So you're asking about military stuff. So I went to basic training in South. I'll just give you a quick overview. I went to basic training in South Carolina. Went to my job training in Texas, and then I was in Germany for 2 years. And in Germany, it was basically a civilian job in a military uniform. And so I would go, we didn't do any field training. We hardly ever did shooting. We I worked at an AIDS or a health clinic, and I can't even call it an aid station because it was much bigger. It was like a health clinic with a dental clinic next to it. And we were having children, family members, local nationals that would come in, all of that kind of stuff. And I had a lot of off time to get in trouble. And I got married and divorced.
Oh, wow.
While I was getting divorced is when I really turned into that alcoholic. Over there, I went out there when I was 19, and you're legally able to drink at 16. And so they didn't care what I did as long as I showed up for work. And the only time they finally cared was when I stopped showing up to formation. Or I would show up drunk. And so then they put me in a program for about a month. But I just got better at hiding the drink. Because they didn't really care. It was just on paper, hey, you need to go do this. And then I was at the bar that night with most of the people that got me in trouble. And I just got better at hiding the drink. I started drinking clear instead of dark, and it was just better. And I was enjoying life, with all the traveling that I was doing, because I got to go to Prague, I got to go to Austria, I got to go all over Germany, and I loved it. But most of my memories were drowned by my alcohol.
Gotcha.
And I just like at one point I had somebody who told me, hey, and I did not remember this until a few years. I don't even remember this happening, but my friend told me a few years back. She said, hey, we're going to Prague. And if you pick up a drink, we're leaving you there. Like that's how bad I had gotten already. And I didn't know, you know, but alcohol was anyways, it was alcohol, it was promiscuity. Like I just didn't care about myself. I didn't care about other people. And I would go to work and I would play a lot harder and got in trouble. They found me drunk in the officers' quarters many times. You know, they had to come like rescue me because I would get lost drunk walking around.
Right.
And so anyways, I never dealt with my traumas. And so when I left Germany, I ended up going to Washington State. And as soon as I got to Washington State, they're like, hey, you are getting deployed. And so I ended up going to Iraq. And so this is 2009 was when I went to Iraq.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And when I was in Iraq, you know, the first 4 months I worked on the base mostly, but I also went as an ambulance driver, you know, in missions, or I was a truck medic for some of the other units and would go on missions occasionally. But mostly I did like evac on base, you know, getting people to the helipad, getting people to the airport, picking people up and bringing them to the aid station and stuff like that. I had to help with quite a few deaths and quite a few injuries. I was kind of the cleanup crew. And had to clean up the trucks after, you know, everything and whatnot. And there was quite a couple deaths that really impacted me. You know, it's a couple guys that went over a bridge, and there was a little boy that was shot. There was some contractors that got blown up, and so that was the first 4 months. The second 4 months, I went and worked with the field artillery guys. And so with that, I was their truck medic, and I went on missions with them nearly every day. And thank God we never got blown up, but a lot of our battle buddies did. And I remember we got stuck at the gate at one point when we were getting ready to leave, and we just hear boom, 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 and the town right outside of base had been completely exploded. You know, we were getting mortared all the time. Right. You know, we almost got brought into some pretty shady neighborhoods. We realized right away that they were taking us to get ambushed, and so we had to like book it the other direction. A couple of that kind of stuff happened, but we were mostly helping the local nationals on how to sustain themselves, because like one of our unit's biggest goals while we were out there was teaching them how to take care of themselves, so that when we leave, they could take care of themselves. So we taught them medical training. We taught them how to do greenhouses. You know, our people were talking like politics with their people, you know. And so I would just be we were kind of the taxi drivers for the higher ups to do all of this stuff. Gotcha. And then the last 4 months after I had that medical and there was an incident where somebody ended up getting hurt. I didn't clean the wound very well. He ended up getting, it was a drunken hungover situation. I didn't do my job very well because I was hungover. Like we were sneaking alcohol there, and he ended up getting an infection and getting medically discharged because of, you know, me not taking my responsibility seriously. Yeah. And so I had been investigated for a little while. Like I said, I worked hard, I played harder, and got myself into trouble a couple times. Right. You know, and then those last 4 months, it was just ambulance driver again. And so then when I got back to Washington State, the next year and a half was my medical discharge. And so they put me on a desk job. And with that, I was doing the medical readiness for my unit to get them ready to deploy again. And I didn't have hardly any responsibilities. If I did my job, I didn't have to do PT. I didn't have to do training. You know, I again kept going downward and started getting worse with my alcoholism and my addictions. Yeah.
Yeah, it can get a hold of you. Because I was asking, because it seemed like initially Just like when you joined the army in the first place, it seemed like it was like a good thing for you, sort of put you on a path. You were in Germany for a while, but then when you get deployed, it seems like you kind of got your stuff together there because you're like in, again, live situations. But even it's like you're kind of running away from the demon, but the demon's always catching up to you. It's going to get you one way or the other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really good at conforming to the situations I was in and doing great, and then the addiction took over.
Yeah.
You know, and it's there's a saying in recovery. I just wanted to say this: I take a drink, the drink takes a drink, the drink takes me, and that was my pattern that happened. Yeah. Go ahead.
I hate to say this, but I have a lot of friends in the military. A lot of them came out, and most of them, when they come out, they are in a type of addiction. And I hate to say that. If it's not alcohol, it's pills. If it's not pills, it's something else. If it's not that, it's something else. It's always something after something, and that's the sad part of that. And I'm glad our military is taking it more seriously now and keeping more close eye on it, because they're catching it before it becomes a problem. Because I always joke around with my friends, it's 2 things about military going to teach you: be a comedian and an alcoholic. I always joke around with them with that. And unfortunately, the second one, it's not a joke. It's serious. Like, a lot of them are heavy drinkers.
Yeah. And can you talk about, I guess, the support system? So again, you're on the verge, you're getting discharged. You're saying like you choose the discharge option. Did the military give you any? And they also, I'm sure they knew of your condition, battling the alcohol and whatnot. What was like the support system like in the military? That were you able to take advantage of that, or when you were going out, it was like, okay, you basically, I got these issues, and you kind of throw me back out into the wilderness here. I mean, talk about the support that the military can get you, and from what you know, is it still that way, or is it getting better? I think people are saying it was kind of getting better, but talk about the support that you were able to get.
So there's a bit of a double-edged sword, okay, with that. I was one of the ones that was very blessed because I got a medical discharge. And so when I was getting out, they were already doing all the paperwork so that I had money and medical when I got out. Okay. Most people, when they get out, they don't have that. They're just stuck on their ass. They have all of this, and all of a sudden it's just all gone. So I was one of those very blessed because I already had the payments that were coming in and the medical care. Okay. But in the actual military, like, when I stopped being useful, I stopped being useful. Okay. We'll say that, like I had a few people that were like very supportive and whatnot, but as you're getting out, like, they don't care. They don't care. Like, they're just worried about, can we have someone take over your job? Like, you are just a number. You know what I mean? And so, like, in the personal life, I had some people that were supportive, but the military in itself, not really. And it was just like, you're just a number. This is what you got to do. Oh, you can't do it anymore? Okay, we're going to find someone else. And so I remember training somebody, and once I trained that person, they became the person, and I kind of became invisible for a little while, if that makes sense. Yeah. And and then also, I couldn't train or anything. And so I basically was kind of like fodder, kind of like loose weight, or whatever the word is. I can't think of the weight, but I was just weight that was dragging. And
dead weight. Yeah.
Dead weight. Thank you. So I was just kind of dead weight. And so I kind of just was left to fend on my own. And that's one of the reasons why, I just got even more into the alcohol and stuff. And so when I got out, so there's a few different sections of the military, or of getting out and the VA. Okay. So you've got 2 separate things. You've got one, which is your disability benefits, your housing benefits, your education benefits. That's called the VBA, the Veteran Benefits Administration. And then you have the VHA, which is the Veteran Health Administration. Okay. So these 2 things are completely separate, but they connect sometimes. But they're completely separate. Some people think that you go to one for the other. No, they're completely separate. So you've got the disability benefits, and then you've got the healthcare side. Right. Okay. They don't always talk, and there's just a lot of stuff. And then in the middle, you have the civilian programs that are there for support and advocacy. Okay.
Gotcha.
When I got out, nobody talked about this middle. Nobody talked about all of these benefits and these nonprofits or the military podcasts or like any of the stuff that would be there as a sport. Nobody talked about this. All they talked about was the benefits and the health. Again, for me, I was super blessed because I already had the benefits and I already had the health. But most people, when they get out, they don't have that. They have to fight for it because you don't automatically get health care unless you get benefits.
Right.
And so you get a lot of these homeless people and they're homeless and people will be like, oh, just go to the VA. You can't go to the VA unless you get your benefits. And it's really sometimes it's really hard to get your benefits, you know. Now you can go to the VA hospital for like mental health crises, but if you don't fit into a certain thing, you know, they can't even help you then because you're not considered a veteran because you don't have the time in service or you don't have this. And so they're doing better, but there's just still a lot, I think, personally, and this is life according to Marie. And if anybody who's listening can make this change, I think everybody that gets out of the military needs to have a 10% at least, so they can go to the VA and start their health care. And then if they get any more, awesome, that's great. But everybody who's ever been in has been traumatized one way, shape, or another. And the big trauma is we are trained to be a soldier. We are not trained to be a civilian. And so we go from trained to be a soldier in the military to being a soldier in the civilian side. And there's no transition that's available. And that is a trauma because we're going from where we're comfortable and used. And then we come in here and we become a burden, you know? Yeah. And so if anybody could make that happen, everybody should have a 10%. But anyways, so I was very blessed, but most people are not. So I just have to put that out there, you know?
No, please.
Because a lot of people.
I agree, actually, 100%. Yeah. I try to cut you off because I know I have a lot of friends in the service, and I need at least 10 people that I know of right now are still fighting, and they've been out for 20 years, still trying to get their benefits, and it blows my mind. Like, you guys sacrificed everything to protect this country. The least we can do is give you fucking benefits, and I keep it like that because I see a lot of people are on the streets. And I always make sure I have a few dollars on me. If it's $20 or whatever, at least you can get a hot meal, something. Right. And that
now we do have. All right,
go ahead.
Just want to put out there. I mean, certainly for those in the chat, if you have some questions for Marie, you can certainly drop those questions in the chat, and you know, we'll try to entertain them on the show. All we ask again, be respectful. I had to put a couple guys in timeout because you guys are being very naughty, and we don't tolerate that here. So, but again, a respectful question. Drop it in the chat. We'll be sure to raise it later on. But go ahead, Pete. I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
So I know you mentioned, like we have other guys there, finding different hobbies and all this stuff, and it helps with your mental health. And I think it's pretty cool. Like we had CQ on here. We had Dwayne White, Doug Bennett, not relation to him, obviously, and stuff like that. So I think it is great at giving you guys different hobbies and stuff like that. So how is that helping you in mental health today?
So let me go back still, you know, just to kind of finish the line that I was at, and it actually incorporates into what you're asking. So again, I was very blessed because I already had the medical and I had the disability. And so what I ended up doing, because I already had this, I was able, and most people have the benefits of the GI Bill, so they could go to school if they want to. Okay. I did not connect to people in the civilian world very well at all.
That's right.
And so, and I got myself in trouble because they had given me a big chunk of money when I got out for my medical discharge. Cause they're like, oh, you finished your contract. Had we not medically discharged you? So here's a bunch of money. So they gave me the money, and in my addiction, I spent 30 grand in 2 months and went to Vegas and partied and just acted stupid. Yeah. And so that was the thing is when I get out, I didn't have a cushion of people to support me. I had the benefits, but I didn't have people. Nobody talked about this middle. Like, here's the veteran network that you can get connected to. Nobody explained to me. And I'm going to say this now, for anybody that's listening, okay, nobody told me that I needed to incorporate into my next unit, which was the veteran community. Because when I left Germany, I knew I had to connect with the people in Washington. Right. When I left Washington, I knew I had to be connected to the people when I was in Iraq. Nobody taught me how to connect with a civilian life as a veteran. So if you are getting out of the military, or if you are struggling and feeling like you are alone, incorporate into your new unit, which is the veteran community. And it is huge. And if you need help finding out where it is, go to your state Department of Veteran Affairs, and they will give you a list of nonprofits and veteran organizations that are around that can help support you. Yeah. Go, please do it. Don't do this shit alone. Okay. So coming back to me, I didn't know that I had that, but I did know that I had school. So I decided to start going to school. And in school is when I got into my photography. I took a photography class because I took this picture and I just fell in love with photography. And so again, I never addressed any of my trauma, but I knew that there was some beauty in the world that I could connect to. Yeah. And I ended up getting in a relationship where it was a very codependent alcoholic relationship. He was military as well. He never faced his traumas. We were very unhealthy together.
Right.
But amongst all of this, I was able to have my photography, and I went to school. And in school is when I was introduced to the veteran community a little bit, because there's most colleges that you go to will have a veteran department, and they do socializing together. And they help you with your benefits and stuff like that. And so with that was when I finally kind of got connected. And so I'm also going to go back. You're talking about creativity and talents, right? Yeah. So music and writing were something that I did when I was in high school.
Right. You talk about you were in the choirs back in high school.
Yes. Right? Yeah. So junior high to high school, I was in the choirs, and I ended up in the audition a cappella choir, and music was a huge thing for me. And then I also learned how to just write poetry and creative writing in high school from a teacher who just was phenomenal. His name is Greg Park. He is a teacher here in Utah still at Timpanogos, and he's an author and just an amazing guy. And he told me one day, he said, just write. And I was like, okay. And so with that, I kind of found a voice in my writing. You know, it was right after I had been raped, and I needed this voice, and I started finding a voice in writing. In the military, I stopped writing, but I started writing music because I was like, I want something in my life to continue going and beauty. Right. When I got out of the military was my photography, and photography was the way that kept me alive for years and years and years, and listening to music, but I wasn't writing. I didn't actually start really writing again until I got sober. And that was when God kind of gave me this voice in my writing, you know, but being able to have that hobby of the photography and going out in nature and stuff like that really, really helped me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And like people were saying, we've talked to several folks, certainly in the comedic space. Again, another way to vocalize. Dwayne White. I think he was really the guy who kind of kicked it off, and then he connected us with some other guys. So again, and guys who came from other careers in military, and they just on a whim just get on the comedy stage and just start sharing their life and whatnot. Or if it's not comedy, it's spoken word in certain ways. And so I think just in general, especially now the way schools are run, we neglect the arts in a lot of ways. I mean, think about high schools, one that they're pulling away art programs, music programs and whatnot. And it's just about reading, writing, and arithmetic. I mean, those things are important, but especially in a world that as chaotic as the one that you came from, the theaters of war that you've been in and seen. I like what you said about, again, the photography, like getting you connected to the good that's still in the world. Yeah. Because there is, if you look, I mean, the way things are going now, a lot of times, people are asking that question, what is still left to live for, or what is good in the world? And I'm so glad that you were able to find it through all these arts that you've been able to apply to yourself, the poetry, the photography and whatnot. And that kind of gets me to a question. I ask every military vet that's ever been on, I always ask this question. Our show is called The Gray Area because, we oftentimes, a world wants to define everything in black and white, and we realize that there's more gray and that people are oftentimes more connected than than we think. But especially for the military vets, I like to pose the gray area question in this sense, that obviously you had maybe some expectations when you went in. You talked about how, you know, when you went in, how it was like a godsend for you and everything. But a lot of times when people get in, there's sometimes some disillusionment. Sometimes when you're in the service, when you're seeing how things are done, it could be chain of command, it could be mission or purpose. Like, you know, some people get the idea, like, you know, why am I here? Did that ever come up for you? Did you have a gray area in your military service that really started to get you to think about, am I doing the right thing or not? Did that ever come into your mind at some point in time?
Many times. So in the military, there is a lot more corruption than people realize. There is a lot. It's because we're dealing with a lot of people who are traumatized. Most of the people I know that I was in the military with dealt with some form of trauma in childhood and needed some form of stability. Yeah. Most of them did. They dealt with some sort where they didn't feel connected and they needed to feel connected, or they needed to feel strong, or they needed to feel powerful, you know, whatever it is. And so many of them dealt with a lot of trauma. So you're dealing with a lot of trauma. You're also dealing with a lot of past of the good old boy syndrome. Or the good old boy symptoms, or whatever it's called, you know, where, you know, people get away with murder. There's a lot of corruption. It's like, this is your battle buddy, you have to protect them, you know, or things are done this way. It's always been done this way. There's still a lot of a lot of corruption that happens. And there's a lot of, you know, like I don't even know where to start. So most of the corruption, a lot of the corruption has to do with different types of addictions, because there is a lot of promiscuity, a lot of unhealthy relationships. And I participated in that, you know, and I won't go into details with it, but a lot of unhealthy relationships that go against my morals. And I participated in that for many, many years, you know, and there is a lot of that kind of stuff going on. Like sex just becomes, that is the way that people cope, and that is the way that people control, and that is the way that people, you know, find comfort, and that was just everywhere. So higher ups, lower ups, lots of people married, you know, and just kind of, so that is a huge thing. And so then there's a lot of secretive stuff, right? But then you also have the manipulation and the when I was in Iraq, you know, we had one of our sergeant majors that got kicked out of the military because he was wearing a sapper tab when he never went to sapper school. And they found out in the middle of our deployment. You know, we also had one of my friends told me that at one point his unit left him to die somewhere because he saw some shady instances where money was exchanged with some of the local nationals. And he saw that, and they left him. They just left him, you know, and there was that situation that happened. We also had the two guys that went over the bridge. What happened was the higher ups told them to turn around on the bridge. Turn around on the bridge. Yeah. And so they ended up going over. And so there's a lot of that stuff. And then you also have just it's people doing the best they can with the information they have, but also people that are manipulative, and, you know, people that are traumatized. And I also had a battle buddy, you know, who I didn't find out until after I got back from deployment. He killed his daughter. He killed his daughter through a sexual act. And that was somebody that I deployed with. That was my battle buddy over there that I thought I could trust. And so in there, you start learning you can't trust anybody. You have to, like, you have to trust them with your life, right? Because you're in there, but you can't trust them with anything else.
We've heard yes.
Yeah.
That was another guy. I think he said almost the exact same thing.
It's kind of sad. I heard rumors, not sources like this. Like a couple of my buddies, like, it's like I've never seen anything like that. I'm like, couple of them, like, I saw a few little stupid things, but nothing like really big. The person who told me that it is a little bit of a lot of politics more going in. I can't say his name, but he's higher ranking. He told me there's a lot of politics. I cannot wait to put my papers in and get the fuck out. He goes, I mean, just like that. But you know, I'm hearing this, and like, I'm not too surprised, to be honest with you. We see it in movies, we read it in novels, we all hear like all this stuff, but do you really believe it? You're a living fact of it now.
Yeah.
Like, it's sad. And one thing I learned over the years talking to so many people in the service and retired or whatever, it never changes. Military changes very, very, very slow. Civilian war changes 10 times faster than civilian war does.
I had a conversation with a couple people who are active right now, and for their privacy, I'm not going to say their names, you know. But they were talking about how there is a lot of corruption in their unit right now, and that it is just continues and cycle. And I was like, hey, you know, you're getting ready to get out, you know, why don't you go and, you know, report it? And they're like, oh, we can't do that. It's just going to make it worse for the people that are still there if we report it. And so there's a lot of that going on, you know, that people will be punished by other people speaking up. And I was like, well, what about when you get out of the military? And they're like, no, we're not going to risk our people.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's just this generational. Now, not all of the military is like that. And that's the thing. You talk about the gray area. There is some really wonderful people out there who are trying to make life wonderful and trying to do better, you know, and then there are people that are not. And I wanted to give one example of this awesome thing that's going on in active duty right now. And I want to announce this because I know you guys have a little bit of a following. Okay. If, back in 2020, this is just one example of overcoming the politics, right? Back in 2020, if military members refused to get the COVID shot, they were discharged.
Right.
They were not allowed to stay. I just had a friend of mine who I deployed with that was that is now a major that said that he is part of a team where Trump has authorized them to seek out, like this is their whole campaign that they're doing. They are seeking out people who got medically discharged and they are letting them back in the military.
Yeah.
And they are giving them their time back. So all of this time, these last 6 years is going to be time served. If they choose not to come back, they will get paid for those 6 years. Mm-hmm. So if you are listening to this and you know somebody, because a lot of people fell off the face of the planet when they got out because they felt worthless, they felt horrible. So if you are listening to this and you know anybody who got discharged due to not getting the COVID shot, reach back out to the military. And you can contact me. I'll give you the information. I don't have it on hand right now, but I will give you the information and they will make it right with an apology letter from President Trump. And so there are people that are trying to make the military better because that was just one of those, you know, it was a fear mongering technique.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was people who were like, oh, you have to get this or else, you know, and so there are people that are trying to make it better. And so again, please reach out to me if you want that information. But yeah, there are people that really are trying to make a difference.
Gotcha.
No, I would agree 100% of that because I do know a lot of people. CQ, for great example, like we both know, he always tries to help everybody he can. I don't care you're a military or civilian, he always tries to help anybody out. And that's one thing about him. And that's what I like about people who have a story like yourself. You want to help. Keyword, help.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I think you're going to agree with it that we need to do a lot better is transitioning from military into the civilian life. There is no transition. Some very few people I hear have it, like cooks, for example. Oh, they transition like, oh, they need to get into a line of cooking. I'm a chef, so yeah, I do hire a lot of people in the service to be like, no, because if I can do it, why not?
Yeah.
But the transition is not there, unfortunately. I think we need a better one.
Well, and that's the thing is like, so I am a part, I started it's called the Veteran Database Think Tank. And right now I have about 10 organizations and I that are brainstorming in this think tank. And if anybody wants to get involved, please let me know. And we are actually working on a national database that collects resources and collects information on programs that are available. And it's going to be human ran, but AI run. You know what I mean? Human watched over, directed, but then AI ran. And so it's going to be scrubbing the internet for different resources that are available and putting everything in an interactive map database. And so there's going to be some drop down menus that are going to have, here is all the veteran podcasts. Here's all the veteran online organizations that are available and programs. And then it's going to be, what state are you going to? And whatever state that you're going to, then you will be able to, if you're interested, reach out to me on sliderbabe.com. I just saw that message.
Yep.
But it's going to be where you say, hey, I'm getting out of the military. Here is the state that I'm going to. And then you click on that, and then it'll do a drop down menu, and you get to choose what type of benefits. Again, there's the 3 sections. You've got the veteran benefits, you've got the veteran health, and you've got the programs that are advocating for veterans. And so we're trying to get that done. And once that gets done, we are looking to hopefully get it into TAPS, which is the transition program that you have to do before you get out of the military. We want it to be a part of TAPS where you are required before you get out to sign into this website so you have these resources available.
Gotcha.
And so that is something that we're working on. And then something that we've had some discussions. So I have my own podcast, and on there I have interviewed a lot of other people. And something that I've talked about with a few of them is that idea of possibly somebody, I don't know how we would start this, but somebody doing a boot camp for civilian life. And so, we have a boot camp to learn how to be a soldier. Before we get out, it should be a requirement that there is a boot camp on how to be a civilian. And so there's already some programs that are working on that, but it's not with the VA. And so the hope is at some point it will be part of the VA and the DOD. But like there's a program called the Stick Vet, and I'm gonna do a shameless plug for Stick Vet. So Stick Vet is a combat mental health specialist, and when he got out, he started recognizing, Travis Landchild is his name. He started recognizing the demons that us as veterans are carrying with us, and he created a comic called Stick Vet Comics. Okay. And so he started doing that, but he also wrote a book and hosts a Discord chat for veterans. And he hosts these, they're called Not a Counseling groups. And it's peer support, teaching people how to be veterans and teaching people how to handle their demons that they have and to handle their mental health stuff. And his goal is for people to take his book and create a meeting anywhere in the world. And you can take this book. It's kind of like the anonymous groups, right? You can run the meeting however you want to, but you follow this book and learn how to be a veteran, because we need to be taught that. Yes, we are technically a veteran when we get out, but we're not taught how to act like a veteran because we're still acting like military, or even worse, we're acting like traumatized children because we don't have our way anymore.
Right.
And so if you are a veteran and you're looking into that transition help, look up Stick Vet, reach out to him because he's already got that. And if you're interested in helping with the database to get the information out there, reach out to me, because that is something that is being talked about a lot. We're working on that.
Gotcha. Want to talk a little bit about, I guess, the pivot. So lots of life experience that you've gone through. You're out. You've acquired these hobbies and the arts, the photography, and everything. But you as a person, you've been through a lot more than. And I can relate to you early on when you're talking about I didn't grow up in foster care, but I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. Dad drank a lot. My mom had mental illness. Being outcast in school and whatnot. So I understand that sense of alienation very well. I was one of the nerds back in the day. So, but you're at this place now, you're out, but things start to turn around. What was the point, with the alcoholism and just the sense of ostracization? When did you go from being this person who was, again, having all this trauma and the victimization to when you really start to get a grasp on things? Talk about that. What was that pivot? What was that turnaround? And if you want to mention, again, I know you said you're a part of Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think that you also said that also helped you in your recovery as well. What can you just pinpoint that time when you were able to really turn some things around? Because again, a lot of people wouldn't have recovered from a lot of stuff when you were a teenager. And yet you've gone through all these things and you're still here, but you still had stuff you had to deal with, but now you've been able to turn this around. So talk about that. What was that critical point? Was it the light from God? Whatever you want to call it, the Spirit came to you, whatever. Talk about that and how you've been able to turn that and now into, you can take that trauma and then help other people. Because that's really what, that's where it was at for me, how people can turn around when so many people would have fell off.
So there is, I love this. This is my favorite topic, right? This is where I.
So I had to tee it up for you. I had to put the golf shot in the green. So I just tee it up for you. Go for it.
Yes. So there was a lot of different things that happened. Like after the military, I spent from 2011 to 2017 really getting lost in my addictions and my alcoholism. And again, a very, very codependent relationship for a while. Yeah. And when we split up, due to a lot of different layers, when we split up, I took financial aid, I ran away and moved to Florida. And the reason I went to Florida was all God. I had felt years before that I needed to go to Florida. I had that very real sensation, you need to go to Florida. And my ex and I were making plans to do it, but he decided he wanted to stay in Arizona because his kids were close in California. And I chose him instead of that following from God, that prompting from God. And so that led me to more years of not doing well. So we split up. I took financial aid, dropped out of school, and moved to Florida. And I got to Florida and I really lost myself, really did. Like my whole life became about the addictions, promiscuity. I was working at a brew house. I was drinking all the time. I was donating plasma just to drink or buy more cigarettes. I was at one point, I was partying and living with college kids that were all 18, 19, 20 and like throwing keggers for them. Like my life was literally that. And then getting high. I was getting high all the time. And then again, throughout all of this time, I'm having the physical pain. I'm having the physical problems, but I'm self-medicating and they're giving me pain meds. I was going to the VA, but I would talk about this over here so that they didn't ask me about this over here. Very selective honesty. I was talking to them about some of my traumas, but not letting them know that I was cutting off my own feet with the addictions. And so I wasn't really getting the help and my physical is getting worse. My emotional is getting worse. And at one point I was like, something's not right with what I'm doing. Oh, I just need to live alone. I just need to move out. I'm just hanging out with too many college kids. I just need to live alone. So then I moved into a studio apartment. And that's when I realized no one else was around and I was still doing the exact same thing. And at that point, I had gotten to a point where I was drinking, 18 to 24 pack a day of alcohol, of beer. Yeah. And I was going to the bar, and at the bar, I had one drink in my hand. And by the time I wasn't even halfway through, they already had another one right in front of me because they knew that I would finish it and then go for the next. And then I would be like double fisting it at the end of the day and then running to the gas station to get more to have at home. And then it started. This wasn't every day, but it was pretty regular, and then I would wake up in the morning and I started going and having Bloody Marys or mimosas in the morning, and then I would go to work and my work was all about alcohol and I would go get drunk afterwards. And so it's just alcohol and getting high and partying and the pills. Like that was my life for a while. And there was just a couple different things that happened. And one of the big ones is I had a friend of mine who worked in the psych unit that made the comment like, Marie, I drink 8 beers and drove to her house. And she's like, Marie, I drink 1 or 2 and I can't drive. She's like, how are you? And she's like, I think you're bordering on alcoholism. And I made the joke. I was like, no, I am an alcoholic. And I was like, oh, like that was the first time that it kind of hit me. I'm like, oh, I might be an alcoholic. I'm not okay. And then I had a really weird conversation with one of my sisters. So I'm the youngest of 9. There's me and my biological brother. And then 2 other brothers were adopted. And then my parents had 5 of their own.
Got you. Okay.
And so one of my sisters, I used to think that she just kind of hated me, and there was just a lot going on there. But I went and had a conversation with her, and she helped me see that some of the perspectives that I had, because you've got rose-colored glasses where you see everything good, right?
Right.
I had dark-colored glasses, black-colored glasses, where everything was just miserable. And when I was talking to her about something, she's like, "Marie, you're remembering that wrong. Like you're looking at that in a not so good way." And it kind of helped me see that there was some perspectives that weren't right, you know. And then I also started really understanding who I was, and kind of like exploring, you know, like just all parts of me, you know. And I'm just like, oh, I am not as good. I am not good, you know. And so at one point I was driving drunk with a friend in the car, and he wasn't doing good. I wasn't doing good. And I had a split second where I was like, I should get an Uber. And I was like, no, because that's the cost of another couple drinks. Like, I'm not going to do that. So I drove, and I almost got in a really bad car accident. I was driving 70 in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida at 2 a.m. So I'm in the fast lane. And so, you know, people are going 80, 90, 100 next to me, like, get out of the way. I'm swerving so hard, just drunk. And I swerved so hard, I almost hit a guardrail, and I had to overcorrect. And I literally felt the wheel, like God grabbed the wheel out of my hand and straightened out the car as somebody went zooming by, because I was going into the other lane, and I literally felt the wheel, and I was just like, what the heck? And in that moment, like, God's like, you just almost killed your friend. If you don't straighten out your shit, you're going to kill yourself, who you don't care about, but you're going to kill a friend, and you're going to kill your potential family. Like, you need to straighten up. Like this is your one chance. Like, if you don't do something, you will die or you will kill someone. And I was like, okay. So I got him home. I was still drunk, you know, and I went to sleep. And that next day, I just knew I had to be done. And so that was when I walked into the rooms of recovery. And when I tell you, I was so scared, you know, I sat in my car and I cried. You know, I didn't know anything about recovery groups except for what I saw in Fight Club. And the only thing I remember is the guy crying in the guy's boobs, and he pulls his face off, and there's a face of tears between this guy's, you know, anyways, it was the craziest thing. But I just thought it was going to be sad. It was going to be miserable.
Now, you said the room of recovery. Is this a Pacific group, or is that the name of the group?
One of the anonymous groups. Yeah.
Okay. And, gotcha.
And so I just knew that I needed help. And so I did that, you know, and there's a lot of them out there. You know, there's the anonymous groups, but there's also just, you know, other groups that are out there if you need it. Celebrate Recovery is a Christian-based one. You know, if you're a veteran, there's a lot of groups within the veteran community. But when I walked into that room, it was literally like, you know, those beaded doorways with beads hanging down.
Yeah.
I literally felt that. I felt like I was walking into something, like it was a physical tingling sensation all over my body. And I felt something that I had never felt in my life. And it was connection. I felt like these people knew me, that these people could see me, and that I was connected for the first time ever. And that was kind of like that big pivot. And then my journey has been interesting since then. But before I do that, will you guys indulge me with reading a poem, if that's okay?
Go for it.
So really early on in my recovery, God gave me this voice in poetry to find, you know, to explain my journey and to understand my journey and to see his work in my life. And this is a poem that I wrote really early on. I was 6 months sober when I wrote this. And this just is an explanation of what that transition really looked like. And so it's called My Reality. In an alternate reality of days long past, stood a broken little girl in a rock-hard cast. No one really loved her. That was what she thought. In her mind, she was abandoned, left alone to rot. People all around her would pick on her or tease. Taking it all personal, she told her heart to freeze. Her pain grew even deeper when someone took advantage, so she knew she had to run. Her emotions she must manage. The beginning was to fake a smile in every situation, becoming a chameleon so she could prove her station. Next were the addictions, manipulating, lying. Before she even realized it, no longer was she trying. It became a way of life, no effort left at all. To run or drink her life away was her only call. Going through the motions, not letting others in, she felt that to pretend was the only way to win. She saw glimmers here and there, but never finding peace, running to wrong places to try to get release. The people she kept close, she loved as best she could. Most were lost just like her, clinging to falsehood. The ruin this was causing never crossed her mind. Her worth she had been walking on, so hope was hard to find. It took her long to realize her perspectives were all wrong. She was worthy of true love. She had been all along. With this simple knowledge, lines were surely shifted. The weights of old realities were slowly being lifted. The past provided lessons for healing to occur. She learned to focus on today, for the future was a blur. Now, in this strange new realm unfolding every day, stands a hopeful little girl discovering her way. She vulnerable and open to learn humility, willing to make progress towards the day she's free. She fights a daily battle, forgiveness to attain, for from her past reality, resentments do remain. She has to snuff the urges of building up more walls, especially when she feels she's had too many falls. She only knows the next right step is opening her heart to that holy power. He'll outline her part. He's watched her all along, providing her protection. She no longer tries to run from that connection. She does not thrive in chaos or causing a commotion. She can stand her ground, not hiding from emotion. The unknown, though a mystery, no longer is so scary. If the present is unpleasant, she knows it's temporary. She gets up if she falls and holds her head up high. She knows that it's okay if she needs to cry. Continuing this daily, her past no longer binds. And on anxieties of tomorrow, she can lower blinds. Not knowing what the future brings is but a tiny cost. The blessing of uncertainty, she is no longer lost.
Bars. Bars.
Thank you.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. So
I have no words.
Yeah,
I mean, hard to shut me up. Usually, it's very hard to shut me up. You did a good job. You can ask him. I don't shut up easily.
No,
Thank
no,
you.
he doesn't.
Thank you.
But
Oh shit! Here we go again.
oh, there you go. Dang. But so you wrote that 6 months into your recovery,
Yeah.
and now have there been like some setbacks? Like kind of now you've been kind of clean ever since, or how has this road been? Because I know it's not always the same. You know, you can have your setbacks. What's the journey been like since then? Since you wrote that?
It has been very interesting. So this was back in 2017.
Mhm.
That was when I got sober. And that first year, me coming off of, everything, I was still smoking and still, still kind of trying to figure out life and whatnot. But they had put me on antidepressants.
Mhm.
And so after about a year of recovery, I was learning how to live sober because I didn't know how to. Like, I literally think about it as it was my junior high and high school all over again.
Yeah.
Because I stopped emotionally maturing at 12 when I started using regularly. It was like I completely skipped my growth. And so that first year was really learning how to socialize in sobriety. And then I following promptings, I end up in North Carolina. So that was in Florida, and now I'm up in North Carolina. And in North Carolina is when I really started getting introduced to God and Christ again. I had gone that first year. It was learning how to socialize, but also like trying to figure out who my higher power was, and for a long time I called it God. And I learned how to embrace spirituality in all its forms. So I learned how to meditate with the Buddhists. I learned how to connect with Gaia and Mother Nature, and the creatures with the Native Americans. I learned some really awesome lessons from some Mexican shaman. I learned how to praise in the non-denominational Christian churches. And then I went back into the Mormon church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so it was just kind of building this foundation of not drinking and spirituality. And that was it for a little while, So then the next year, my second year, is when everything kind of started going haywire. Like I was no longer masking, no longer covering. My body is starting to get a lot worse and my emotions are getting worse. And I start having like seizure-like episodes that they originally misdiagnosed as bipolar episodes. Right. But I was also diagnosed with PTSD and borderline personality and ended up in the psych unit. So they put me on.
So you got diagnosed at PTSD all those years later, like even after they
called it adjustment disorder for years and years.
But just given everything that you from early on, from the 3 men to the just now, because I was going to ask you that as well earlier. It's like being in the theater of war, whatnot, seeing all the bodies and the victims, but all of this came later.
Yeah. So I honestly, like, this is a funny story and I like to share this sometimes. When people would react to loud noises or to fireworks, I would get so pissed off at them because I'm just like, you're just making this shit up. Just get over it. Like this isn't a big deal. Like, why are you freaking out? Why are you having a hard time? I did not believe that was something that happened.
Right.
I was so delusional because anytime I went to fireworks or anytime I was around loud things or concerts or anything, I was drinking or high. And so that first 4th of July changed my perspective of everything. That first 4th of July when I was sober and those fireworks hit, I hit the ground and cried in the middle of hundreds and thousands of people that were there at the events that I was at. I hit the ground and cried. And I was like, holy shit. Like, oh, I might have PTSD, and then, what brought me into the psych unit was being triggered back to my childhood trauma. There was something that happened that triggered me back to my childhood trauma. And I'm like, oh shit, like I'm not okay. And I almost put my car in front of a train. And I went to a meeting and I told on myself, and there was an old veteran that was there. And he said, Slider, I don't want to bury your ass next week. So get your ass to the VA. I was still so delusional that I get to the VA, and luckily I had a friend with me, and I get to the VA, and when I'm there, they're like, hey, you're either going to take an ambulance or your friend can take you to the psych unit, an hour away. And I was within a half an hour, I had manipulated them so much that I was walking out the door and getting ready to go home. I am so grateful that I had a friend with me, and she said, your ass is not going home. And she drove me there. Like, I was like, well, I just need to go home to get stuff. She's like, nope, we are going now. And she drove me and got me in there. And I am so grateful for that, because in that psych unit was when I finally was able to feel safe enough to be triggered into my military trauma and my childhood trauma. I did not know that I had military trauma. I did not know. I had been drinking so much. I was like, oh, I'm totally fine. Everything's great. And I didn't know that the childhood trauma, like I was literally so lying to myself so much, and so that first psych unit really just kind of opened up doors, and they put me on 5 different medications, because I was diagnosed bipolar, borderline, and PTSD. And for people who don't know the difference between bipolar and borderline, bipolar is a chemical stuff that's going on in your body, and you will probably be on meds for the rest of your life if you need to be, if you are genuinely bipolar. All right. Borderline is an emotional reaction. Okay. Because I was so messed up, my chemicals were so messed up from all of the drugs and alcohol that I was on. That's why they thought that I had bipolar, because the chemicals were all messed up. But for 5 years, I was on these medications. And during those 5 years, so between 2017 and 2022, Sorry, I'm just going to go forward and then go backwards. 2022, sure. I ended up in the psych unit again after doing trauma therapy, and the medication stopped working for me. And I started having adverse reactions. They started giving me cognitive processing problems and memory problems and physical symptoms. And they're like, you're not bipolar, you're borderline. So I ended up in the psych unit the second time so they could detox me off of all of the medications.
Off the drugs, and then you get to the
because my chemicals were messed up for a while. The meds helped them balance out until my emotional was doing better. And then the meds stopped working. And so then they're like, you're not bipolar, you're just borderline. And so borderline is that emotional instability, and it fluctuates quicker, throughout the day. Even I have multiple ups and downs. It's a dysregulated, nervous system as well, and bipolar is like these extended periods, And so anyways, over those 5 years was when I really, I never relapsed on alcohol.
Okay, good.
Or on weed or on pain pills. My struggle was food. Food was, oh my gosh, my food addiction got so bad. I got up to 250 pounds.
Ooh.
And I was not okay. And so, we go, between 17 and 2020, I am getting more active in my church, but I'm also, masking with food. I felt like, okay, well, I'm in the church. I have to go to the temple now. And for those of you that don't know, there's the actual church, and then there's the temple. And the temple, you make different kind of covenants to go into the temple. So I had gone to the temple, but then 2020 hit, and I could not be around other people. And I realized that a lot of the work that I had done was out of expectation of other people. Right. Well, I'm in the church and I have to do this now. Or like I'm sober and I have to do this. There's so many different layers with my recovery. Like I was putting on a show for other people, and emotionally I wasn't okay. And so after that, I started doing actions that got me to lose my recommend again. And I started smoking cigarettes again because I had quit. Mm-hmm. I started smoking cigarettes again. And over the next couple of years was me trying to realize, okay, what do I actually want? And it was learning and growing. And then I ended up moving to Utah in 2021 because my dad got dementia, and they wanted me to be close to kind of help out. So I moved out here, but then I realized the unhealthy family dynamics that I had going on. Yeah. Because now I'm sober, I'm not participating anymore. And I'm seeing that I was participating in some very unhealthy things. And so I had to walk away from my family for a little while. And as I was doing that, I was also doing trauma therapy. And so once I finally started going through trauma therapy, I started losing the weight. I started genuinely understanding my own spirituality and my own understanding of mental health. And then I started having all of these issues. Then my body started getting worse as well. So I'm getting a healthier reaction, to food, losing the weight, end up in the psych unit. January of 23, we decided to get me a breast reduction to help with my back. And then my body just starts tearing apart because I don't have the weight on it anymore. In the military, I had the muscles that kept me stable.
Right.
And then I had the weight that kept me stable, and it just started tearing my hips apart. And so around that time, I ended up in a care facility getting my hips replaced. I had to get both of my hips replaced. Yeah. And while I was in there, the bulimia got even worse. And so after I got out of there, I also got married while I was in there too. In between surgeries, I got married to my best friend, and he's also a veteran. He's a Marine vet. And so I had these good things going on, and I was processing through trauma stuff and whatnot. And there was a lot of different layers going on. Physical body, they start figuring out, that I've got this Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and when I got out of the facility, I started doing an intensive outpatient program for PTSD and food addiction, and so that was kind of once I did that, then I was finally feeling more of myself. And then that leads me to last year when I really started finding out who I am and really started getting into my podcasting and my writing and my advocacy and kind of gets me into here. And so, but it took a lot. There was a lot of different layers that I had to go through, and then even then I ended up in the psych unit again back in December this last year, and a giant PTSD program in January. And so there's been a lot of that. The setbacks that I've had mostly has been with my physical body and my emotional stuff and my PTSD, not so much in the addictions, because as an act of God, I have not picked up a drink or a drug in 9 years now.
Wow. I gotta, Pete, I'm gonna turn it over to you, but
yeah, I would actually
I know you keep talking about, obviously God intervened and whatnot, but there's something in you, because like this doesn't happen like I said, there was so many times to go off the cliff and you pull back and you kept trying. I mean, so a lot of people get in and out and you quit. There's something in you that just will not quit. And that you got to give yourself, if no one else is going to give you credit, if you don't want to take it for yourself, I got to give you some of that. There's something in you.
She deserves her flowers right now.
That is, yeah. I mean, we're Christians here, both me and Peter. So we get that side of it and whatnot, but there's something in you as well that you might not have known about for a long time, but it's kept you here. Because I just can't imagine. I don't know if I would have personally. I'm just keeping 100. All the stuff I went through growing up or whatnot, I don't know if I could have handled all that. So again, give yourself some credit.
No offense, yours was a walk on park versus hers.
Yeah, that's what.
So I'm going to stop you there. Okay, I don't like when people do that. Okay, and the reason why is you cannot compare stories. My story is mine; it will kill you. Your story is yours; it would kill me. You have access to the tools available to help you heal from your journey. I have access to the tools that'll help me heal from mine. I don't like when people do that. Yours was so much easier, but yours was so much, no, fuck that. Excuse my language. But I will say that and share it, and yell it on the rooftop. Do not compare stories.
No, I totally agree on that. Like I tell people all the time, because I was the biggest beer grooming guy at one point, and I tell you can compare my beer versus your beer, or my hair over your hair, or my great Greek accent versus your Greek accent, kind of thing. But and so on and so on. But one thing I want to touch base, a couple things here. One, I want to thank you for sharing your story and coming on top. You do not understand how much that means to people, even myself, because like you said, I have my own stories. I have background too, not the greatest, but hearing these stories, like, it motivates me. It motivates me a lot. The second thing I want to talk about is when you were talking about the fireworks, people jumping, like, I never questioned the fireworks. I'll explain in a minute. I always ask people, I don't know, service, like, does war movies bother you, or fireworks? Like, some people say, sometimes when my son play Call of Duty, I do get jumpy. And I never understood that till 2 years ago, when I actually witnessed a murder about 5 feet away from me. And the next day, I'm like, a pan dropped in my kitchen. You see me ducking and grabbing something. I'm like, what the hell is going on? My boss was like, "You okay?" You're like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to go for a cigarette. I'll be right back." Never realized how much that little things can affect you. Yep. And it takes time. I mean time. Now, it won't be like, okay, you're walking a dog, he did something stupid, and you're mad at him, you'll be fine in 5 minutes. No, it takes a lot of time to get over stuff like that. And that's the biggest thing, I think. And I think we both can agree on that. Like, it takes maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. It could take you 60 years. It might never go away.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I just want to say, like, with what you just said, and I want to validate this. You said you witnessed murder, and loud noises affect you now. Some people will see that is not that those don't connect. They'll be like, well, this was your trauma, not this, and people will say that. But the reality is, when you witness a trauma, it's a heightened nervous system. And so you go into this hyper nervous state. And so if a loud noise, or if an action from someone else, or if a movie brings that same thing, the body keeps the score. The body holds on to that. When was the last time I felt this hyper nervous system? Oh, it was when this stuff happened. I'm not safe. And so even if you have a trauma that has nothing to do with something that triggered you, don't shame yourself for having that response, or don't shame someone else for having that response, because a heightened nervous system is a heightened nervous system, and it might not look the way that you think that it will. One thing that can be completely out of the blue can trigger you based on your own traumas. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because that is important.
No, you're totally right. Like, it took me about a year and a half to get over that, and I didn't realize how much it takes. And like, I work in a kitchen, and banging and slamming thing is a normal everyday concept. So the first couple months that was worse, and then it starts slowing down a little bit. But I'm the lucky one because I got over it faster. Some people can never get over it, and that's the hardest part. How do you live? Not getting over.
I don't think there's ever truly getting over things. I think as you learn how to manage it better, that's the thing.
I agree with that.
It's like the only way to get over it, right, is through it, right? You walk through it, but there's never really an end as you're walking through it. It's do I have the adequate tools? And one of the main tools to be able to get through a trauma is connection. Because most traumas have to do with feeling disconnected. Addiction, the opposite of addiction is connection, because addiction isolates you. Trauma isolates you. I don't feel safe, and so the biggest tool that we have in our belt is connection. And so if you find people or places or your higher power that can help you feel connected, then you learn how to handle the trauma responses better. But I don't think there's ever actually getting over it as some people think. And so I think that it sounds like you had developed the tools where you don't react as badly. And I think that is wonderful. I think that's beautiful.
The one thing I did personally, again, I cannot speak for anybody else, what I did personally is, while I was literally behind this wall, across from the parking lot for me, I walked in the next day. Just to prove a point, I'm not scared of any motherfucker out there. Simple as that. I'm gonna walk past there every fucking day. I'm gonna walk past every fucking other day. Walk my dog that way. I'm not gonna let anybody scare me.
So you did exposure therapy, and that is important for some people. Yeah, that's what it's called. You're like, this is a situation that scares me, and I'm gonna expose myself to a situation. And I think that's wonderful. That is an awesome tool to use.
Gotcha. We got about 20 minutes left in the show. First of all, I want to thank the chat. We've got a lot of people watching this live across several platforms. So again, we want to thank you for your participation tonight. Just make sure you hit the like button, both on the Black Man Unfiltered network as well as the Sparta HQ network. Make sure you hit the like button there. Really appreciate the support tonight on this very engaging conversation. And we may have to bring you back for a part 2, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, I will come back as many times as you want.
This has been terrific, but I want to pivot a little bit. So, more me than I used to be, Journey to Freedom. How'd that come together?
So I'll show you guys. So this is my book, and this is my own photography. And my book is filled with other photos and just my own poetry. And so more me that I used to be, a journey to freedom. Like I said, I've been writing since I got sober. And this actually relates into, this last year, So last year, right before I went on my honeymoon with my husband, I had this feeling that I needed to publish this book. And it wasn't for me, it's for other people. And so I started working on this. When I got back from my honeymoon, we got it published. And the goal of this book, and if anybody is interested in supporting, the goal of this book is not for me to make money. Any money that I get from this book is going back into buying books to get them into jails, institutions, mental health facilities, nonprofits, or just people that are struggling. So I've already donated probably about $2,000 worth of books into, people that I feel need it. And a lot of it has been some of the, like one of the local VA, I donated some there. I had somebody who bought 10 of them, and I sent them out to North Carolina for her to give into her, she goes to the Veterans Court or the Drug and Alcohol Court. And so she's doing that. There's another mental health place here that got some. I've donated some into other locations. And anyways, so if you are interested in buying the book to get it into into jails, institutions, please let me know. You can go to sliderbabe.com and order some. If you want to order a large amount, then yes, I will sell all of. You can either buy one for 20, or you can buy more of them at cost to donate. And so, if you want, please do. But I got this book going, and it is my way of sharing the beauty that I have found in the trauma that I have been in. The title of the book, if you guys will allow me to read one more poem, is from one of my poems. And I just want people to be able to get back to who they are, because God created us in his image, right? And his image, if you look at a baby, his image is joy, and it is love, and it is connection and dependence upon other people. That is the original image. But we got lost, by our own traumas and by our own choices. And so the whole thing is, I had a bishop once tell me, like, some people are made out of clay. Okay. And God molds them into who he wants them to be. People like me, I protected myself with so much rock and granite and hard stuff and covered myself. And somebody once asked Michelangelo, how did you find the picture of David? And he said, I just chipped away what wasn't him. And then I found him. And so that's what I feel like is happening to me, that God is chipping away who I pretended to be. And so that is what this book is all about. And so I'm going to read you this poem. But this book was kind of the starting point to get me to where I'm at today. Is I got this book, and I decided that I wanted to. CQ, actually, CQ is a friend of theirs. He runs the WTF Nation Radio and Pop Culture Warrior. He taught a podcasting class through the Armed Services Art Partnership, asap.com, I believe. But anyways, it's a veteran community, veteran classes that help you in creativity. And he taught a class, and he's like, if you want to get your story out, go be a podcaster. And if you're not ready to podcast, go be a guest. So I found my podcast now is Every Day's a Saturday, USMC veteran. And Brian there, he interviewed me so I could share my story and talk about the book. And then he had me come back and break our stories down. And we did 10 episodes of Coffee Talk with Brian and Marie. We did 10 episodes that really dug into my story. And then I kept coming back as a co-host. And now we interview other people to tell their story. And with that, I started sharing my story on other podcasts. And so that was kind of like the beginning of my getting my voice out there and healing out loud. And so my whole thing is my life has become healing out loud, PTSD to advocacy. And so as I've been, as I got this book, I've been giving it out. I've been doing the podcasting. I've also just started doing more recovery and veteran advocacy. And people will call me and they'll talk to me about the traumas that they've been through or just what they're struggling with. And I'll connect them to other resources and help them find places to heal themselves. I am not a professional. I don't have a degree. I am just a sick mofo out here sharing my story for other sick mofos and helping them heal, and finding the resources for them to heal. And I go to events and I talk about my podcast and mental health and addiction recovery. And so that has become my whole life, Yes. Okay. So the YouTube playlist, I've got a couple different playlists where I record my poetry or just some of the stuff that I feel passionate about. And then I also have all of the podcast episodes. I've put them there that I've been on as a host or a guest. And so my whole goal is helping people and also helping people to find their voice and utilize creativity. Again, photography, writing, whatever that may be for you. My whole thing is I encourage people to find theirs. And so I'm going to read you this one last poem here, because I know we're getting short on time. But this one is called More Me Than I Used to Be. All of my life, I've collected pieces of varying sizes and shapes. I don't know why I held some close and others I hid behind drapes. Some people offered me distorted pieces, and as a hoarder, I couldn't see that even though they were part of a puzzle, they didn't belong to me.
Yeah.
They were part of someone else's picture, usually those who were trying to hand them over to me instead of by their own box, abiding. Like them, I too offered pieces to others along my path, and as I'm learning to step back, sometimes I have to laugh. There are some holes inside that make the picture hard to see, and other places I force the shape of a distorted figure of me. I know the image I manipulated is not the one God made, for he created everything beautiful just the way they were laid. At some point, I looked in other boxes, wishing mine was different. So I started mixing up our pieces, creating something magnificent. I started forcing pieces together, throwing others away. Stealing some from other people, and my picture changed every day. Where I'm at now is trying to get back to the box that is mine alone. And with the help of other people, God's will is being shown. I'm learning how to pick up pieces, the ones I tried to hide, by giving them to other people or thrown away in pride. I'm letting go of the distorted ones that don't fit anywhere and giving them back to their owners so their box won't be so bare. God painted the picture on my box to be the way he desired. And I'm done trying to change things. It makes me just too tired. Slowly but surely, as I get things in order, I know one day I'll find the picture that God had planned for me that got lost in my mind. Pieces are finally fitting together in the way I know he wants. He's telling me that I'll be okay in my heart and in my thoughts. The only thing I know for sure is I'm more me than I used to be. And I know the final piece of art is more perfect than eyes can see.
Finger snapping, right? Awesome, tremendous. So we're gonna put the landing gear on. We would love to have you back because I definitely want to talk to you more about, again, some of the advocacy that you're doing, some of the real life situations that you've been in, and another thing, you kind of slipped it in there. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but you got married again.
Yeah.
And that's been going good. So again, I would love to know, like, how'd you guys meet and really how you were able to sustain, just given all of the again, the situation that you've gone through. I'm sure he's been through some stuff, and yet you guys still found each other, because now it's like that's a whole nother discussion, certainly in this YouTube space or whatever. Everyone's afraid to get married, and marriage is dead, and just all of these things that people are just scared to be in relationship. And the fact that you guys have been able to come together and form this union still and work through and with, I mean, there's so many people who are just afraid. It's like, oh, well, you left the toilet seat, bro, I'm leaving. It's like there's just that out there. So I would love to certainly get, and I'm on my 30th season of marriage. But I learn from everybody. I learn from the newlywed. So I want to learn from you. How are you guys making this thing work? Maybe that we can have a part two where we talk about that, the relationship piece, and how you deal. Especially, in fact, your boy King, he just did a show, him and Michelle, on their, the King and Me podcast. They were talking about, again, dating someone with ADHD, and Michelle, they're very
a whole different world. But
yeah.
I like ending this over a fun note always.
Go for it. But
so
I'm just saying,
where I'm going with this.
Before you do that, let me just say, yes, there is a lot that I could talk about with that, because my husband and I both had a lot of relational trauma. We both had a lot of childhood trauma. We both were military, dealing with PTSD. I just want to say one thing. The only reason why we work is his shit is his and my shit is mine. We acknowledge that our trauma responses are our own and have nothing to do with the other person. And we're on our own individual journey of healing, and we keep things separate. And so we take things out on each other, but we acknowledge when that happens and then back off, give each other space to figure it out. And we are on this journey together, but we are not on the same boat. This is a picture that came to me yesterday. We are on side by side boats. We are not on the same boat. We are going to the same destination. We check in with each other. We're with each other, but we have to go on our separate journeys of healing and then come back together and then go on and come back. He's been gone for a couple of months. He is spending time with his parents right now, working through things. And my trauma doesn't like it, but I know it's his journey that he needs to go on. I ended up in the psych unit and this PTSD program because I was dealing with my childhood trauma that I was taking out on him. And I moved out for a couple months. I moved out because I was like, I'm not okay with how I'm treating you. And I realized that I needed extra help. So I moved out for a month, and then I went into the psych unit and a month-long PTSD program. And so that is the only reason why we work, is being able to individually take responsibility for our own traumas and continue moving forward together. So I just want to say that, but I would love to come on and actually go into details.
Listen, that's sage advice for anybody of any relationship, that is. So yeah, I would love to certainly chop it up with you there. But Pete, like you said, he loves always in on a funny. So go for it.
I love a good laugh from a military person. So it has to be a funny story that you got to tell us. I don't care if it's military, civilian. Give me one fun story. Does it end on a good note?
Fun story?
Funny story.
Funny story. Oh my gosh, you're gonna ask me that.
So first one right now at the top of the line is, I don't know if you know Angry Alpha friend of CQ. He's in #1 place. So you gotta get up there. We gotta knock his crown down.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I'm talking about, Paul, too.
Unfortunately, yeah. But
a funny story. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I get everybody with this one.
So here's one. Okay. So when I was in the military, when I was in Germany, me and some other single people decided to go snowboarding, right? And this was people are going to be like, oh no, but this was hilarious to me at the time. So I did not like snowboarding. It was my first time. I was on the Austrian side of the mountains, and I went snowboarding, and there was about half of us that just kept slamming down on our ass. Like we could not do good. And so what we ended up doing was, about halfway down the mountain, there's about 6 of us. We decided to sit on the board and go down the rest of the way. Yeah. And we're like, yeah, this is great. This is fun. We get down to the bottom. We decide to go back up to the top. We go back up to the top, and there's a restaurant up there, and we get drunk. And, this is ridiculous. But we got super drunk and decided to sit on the boards to go down again, right? So all the way from the top. Oh, but the issue is, we didn't think about the fact that how many people have snowboarded that day, and that the snow was slick at that point. So we did not think about that. So I decided to sit on the board and go down. And I'm going, and it's like it's going quick and fast. I hit a berm. The board went up. I went up. The board went down, and I landed directly on the board. Oh. And it actually popped my hip out of socket. Oh. I had this bruise that was about that long right across my cheek and my leg, and it was miserable. Oh, yeah. It was horrible. And I had to get down. So I had to sit on the board and get down the rest of the way. But it was so bad. It was such a bad experience. But it was hilarious at the time because we were drunk and we just didn't care.
Yeah. Well, you came out on the other side. You definitely came out on the other side.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for the board.
Yeah, that was bad. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about it now, and I'm like, the only way that I was able to handle that was because I had been drinking. So drinking had its really horrible moments in my life, but it also helped some really hard things. Yeah.
In that instance, it worked out. But yeah. But again, once again, we want to thank you so much for coming on tonight, sharing your story, keeping it 100. The whole time you didn't hold back on anything, and there's so much more that we could talk about, so many different avenues that we could certainly go down. But again, once again, I just want to promote certainly your social media, your presence here. So we have more more me than I used to be, a journey to freedom. You can certainly find that on our website, sliderbabe.com, as we can order copies of it. And certainly if you want to order multiples or whatnot, again, the money that's being raised is going to certainly to help people, to give other books, to certainly, to other vets and whatnot. Find her
not just
social
vets,
anybody.
Yes.
But also find her social media, her Facebook, Instagram, Slider Babe. Just look those up and you'll be able to find her. But certainly as engaging, I think a story that we've shared. We've I think we've interviewed pretty much almost everybody: Army, Navy, Marines. We've kind of gone across the board. We have, I think, Coast Guard. But this one, I think certainly is just to another level. And again, just the fact that you've been able to come out on the other side, coping, I guess, as much as you can. Again, the journey still continues, and that'll, that journey will carry on. But again, you've been handling your business so far the way you need to, and it's just been this has just been a really I'm trying to find BME, you set me up before, and I can't find the link. I think, is this it? Is this the right one? I can't find it now, so I'm all over the place. But really, we're just really appreciative that you decided to do this with us. Certainly for those in the chat tonight, again, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share this show. Share this with your friends. If you know people who've been in the military, people who struggle with addiction, with alcoholism, anybody who you think could benefit from this show, please share it. That's all we ask here. We don't ask for money here, but again, if this show can help somebody, and this certainly can encourage and inspire somebody to take positive action and get on that road to recovery, certainly that's all the things that you really need in this show. But Pete, your final thought, and then we'll turn it over to Marie, and she'll take us home.
Nothing to say right now because she stole the show tonight. So forget about me, forget about you. Let's get her up here and have her close up properly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just gonna.
What are you expecting me to do?
Just close out. Promote whatever you want to promote, whatever you want to say, or whatever. It's yours. I'm giving you the floor. You take us home. Take us home.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for letting me be here. The one thing that I really want to say is there's a couple resiliency. I've never liked the word resiliency, but I learned a new definition of resiliency. And this is something I like to pass on to other people. Resiliency is not, I have to keep going and I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to keep getting up and this, that, and the other. Resiliency is the ability to reach out for help when you're down. That is the thing that I have learned. In this entire journey that I have been on, I have not done it by myself. My dedication in my book, it's dedicated to my squad of angels on both sides of the veil. I have never walked this journey alone. I had to recognize that I can't do this stuff on my own. I had to get help. And so just remember that we have a whole squad of angels on the other side watching out for us, and that we have people here who can be our angels. So if you are struggling, reach out for help. 988 is the hotline for the Crisis Center. Veterans option 1. Reach out to them if you need someone to talk to. Reach out to me if you want to get connected to some resources or help me to develop a way to get more resources into service members before they get out. And please, again, feel free, if you are interested, get a copy of my book for yourself, donate it to somebody who may just need to see light. My whole thing is just learning how to heal out loud, PTSD to advocacy. And I hope you guys can find your own way to heal out loud as well. And use creativity. Always use creativity.
Absolutely.
Amen. Well, again, we want to thank you guys for certainly being with us. I mean, and I guess me and Pete, we never take for granted. You guys, it's Sunday, tomorrow's a work day. You guys can spend your Sunday nights with anybody. But we had over 100 and almost 40 people on the stream tonight spending your night with us. So we just appreciate you guys being here. Just make sure you hit the like button here and hop over to Sparta HQ Network. Also, consider becoming a subscriber to the Black Men Unfiltered Network and the Sparta HQ Network. We got all kinds of content coming up. Expect more interviews. Again, Marie, we'd love to have you back for part 2. And, we just want to continue to grow this space where we can have reasonable conversation. The gray area is about, again, not every side being black. Or we kind of play off the fact that I'm black and he's white. At least he's white sometimes. But
I'm Greek. You're right.
We kind of play off that. That's kind of the handle.
Your ass.
But really, the whole reason for the gray area is that we found that, especially in the YouTube space, we saw some conversations that were just getting very toxic, and it was just people want to put you in the boxes and whatnot, and we just want to have a place where we can have meaningful conversations. Where people, me and Peter, are as different as it gets, but we do share a lot in common. There is a lot of gray area in humanity, and we want to be able to bring that to the floor. How you can have a reasonable conversation, not always agree, but disagree respectfully, and really find the humanity in everybody. And that's really what the gray area is about. So we approach this here, and certainly the military interviews that we've been able to do since we've been doing this show has really added another layer and dimension to the show, where we can show again real people gone through things, served this country, often to great sacrifice. And in your case, in spite of the things that you were doing, you still served this country. And we just, can't thank our veterans enough. We just can't thank those who have chosen to, write a new chapter in their lives. Because a lot of times coming out of the military, you don't know what you're going to do with your life. And people who have stepped up and built organizations to express themselves through comedy, through the arts, that they can have this new chapter in their life that they're writing, even though they can go to other areas. We've had guys on, they've been on Fox News and doing interviews to all kinds of things, but they just want to try this comedy thing. And certainly having the platform and the presence to do so. So we just appreciate people who can turn and open up that next chapter in their lives. So the gray area will always serve as a platform for meaningful, respectful dialogue, to meet interesting people and find the gray area that I think all of us can relate to, and not live in a world that's so black and white that we can't appreciate the differences of one another. So this is what the gray area stands for. So appreciate you being here. And so for all of us, for myself, for Marie Slider Henriksen, and Sparta, the ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panayotis. This is the gray area. You guys enjoy your week. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time. Good night.